What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized Bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your... This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353. Hello, golfers. Today's guest is not just a top 100 coach and instructor, owns his own academy, and he's an amazing inventor, but he is also one of the most likable people in the game of golf today. Now, you've probably seen or used something out of his line of products, or you follow him on social media or around the internet, and under the tour banner or under the name of Tour Striker, because he and his product line have helped countless golfers of all skill levels, from beginners all the way up to accomplished professionals, Ryder Cup, Solheim Cup, and you name it, improve their ball striking and enjoy going through that process so much more with any one of his many inventions. We had a great talk on what it was like for him to learn from some of the legends in the game as he was coming up through the ranks, and what he's learned from a life spent in and around this wonderful game of golf. For those of you with training ideas of your own, he was kind enough to discuss that entire process, since he's been through it so many times when it comes to product development, from idea to production to marketing, financing, and everything else in between. This was just an awesome conversation, and you're going to love listening to him. So please give it up for my guest, Martin Chuck. All right, Martin Chuck, the Tour Striker, is a guest today. Martin, thank you very much for making time to come on.
My pleasure, Pete. So good to be on.
The first question I want to ask you, because it just came out today, is what do you think of the PGA Tour's Player of the Year, Rory getting it over Brooks?
You know, it's interesting. I would have guessed, if you would have said who's going to win it, I didn't know that. Now that you said it, I would have said Brooks, and I would have said it would be a coin tosser. But
Hmm.
I am I'm 50, soon to be 51, and I am a Rory fanboy. So the guy can do no wrong in my eyes. He's awesome, except maybe win a couple more majors. But
Right. He's
I would have had to say, if I was picking it, I'd have to pick Brooks.
yeah. I mean, how do you discount majors, right? If that's what they're all about, and they're put the most emphasis on them, the guy
Yeah,
wins one and
yeah,
top fives and everything else. How do you give it to? I mean, I can understand Roy, and he's very well liked, and maybe Brooks rubbed some wrong shoulder or elbows and shoulders
yeah,
this year because it is a vote, right?
yeah. I mean, who votes? I mean, who is it? Is it
I
players?
think it's the players. I think
Well,
this one
there
is
you
the
have it,
players.
right? There you have it. So the players have anointed Rory the player of the year. So who are we to argue with his peers? I mean, but I am surprised because it's an era that it's my good friend Andrew Rice and friend of yours. He calls it the Brooks era.
Hmm.
Here's a bomber, a good putter, and the game's changing to guys like that. It's fascinating, right? Such a different game now, the game we grew up with.
Oh, it's not even close. I mean, I
Right.
remember playing in 2001 was the first year I went to play full time, and that was right when the Pro V1 came out. And
Yep.
I didn't play very well and went home, licked my wounds, and I went back in
Sure.
2005, and it was completely different. I
Right.
mean, it was full. The bomb gouge era was full blown.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's I just gave a lesson to a 15-year-old kid who golf isn't even his first love. His first love's baseball. He's about 5'11". He weighs about a buck 40. He's a string bean, but he's a strong string bean.
Hmm.
And his father brought him to see me, and I just basically said, "Okay, Dad, I'll take it from here," because a lot of dads want to medal and look over your shoulder and stuff. And the kid could put up easy buck 70 ball speed. You know what I
Jesus.
mean? Like easy. And he had good control over his game. And he just wants to play effective high school golf. That's all he wants. I mean, he doesn't want to turn pro. He plays at Chaparral Golf School in Scottsdale. And guess what? That's Preston Summerhays' school. So here's the top junior in the country on this high school team, and then this kid who's actually a starting pitcher on the high school team, right? And so it's pretty funny. It's just so much talent, and yet golf is just kind of like fun for him, but it's no big deal. And he steps up and he absolutely mashes driver past me. And I'm like, wow, you weigh a buck 40, kid. I could bench press you, a bunch of times. But yeah, no, it's crazy that. So I think I've got you by a few years, but back when I was a kid, yeah, I remember vividly watching like Craig Stadler and Dan Pohl and guys that bombed it, right? And they'd hit it 270, and that was like, ooh, he
Right.
tatered that. And then maybe downwind it went 300, right? Like 300, he hit it 300 yards. Oh my God. And par fours, if a par four was 420, quite often in 1980 or 84, 85, when I was, a teenager, if it was 440, you might take the head cover off your old tiny five wood,
Hmm.
right? And now if it's 440, even I'm 50, my ball speed's still decent, and I can still hit it 300 yards, and it's like I couldn't hit it 300 yards 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
so
amazing
it
what
is.
technology has done from the club side.
Oh, the club side, you swing out of your mind because you know you're going to hit it somewhere effectively on the face, right? And the ball is exponentially better than it was.
Yeah, it's like they combined a balata ball from the old days with the old top flight.
Yep,
It's exactly
it's
what it
funny.
is.
In college, Brennan Little. You ever meet Brennan Little
Mm-mm.
around the way? Anyway, Brennan Little is a caddy. He was Mike Weir's caddy for 10 years. He had a short stint with Sean O'Hare. He was with Camilo Villegas for a couple of years, and now he's with Gary Woodland. So he's had good teams over the years. And it was interesting in college at New Mexico State. So I went from 88 to 91, and Brennan got there 89 to 92. And whenever he was felt a little sideways, like our coach let us play with Pro Vs, so we got kind of a ration of Pro Vs, and we could play. Forget, I think it was the old 382 or something like that, or three. I can't even remember the digits. But if Brennan was hitting it all sideways, he'd go buy a sleeve of Max Fly MD. Do you remember that
Hmm.
ball?
Yeah, it went
He,
ridiculously long.
it did. And so he would just joke. He'd say, if he wasn't hitting well, he'd say, "I'm calling the doctor." So that's what he'd do. He's calling the doctor because he was smart enough to know that if he wasn't on, that this ball didn't have as much spin. Now he might give up a little bit. So Brennan, and I'm not sure he was that smart, to be honest with you. Like we're best pals and roommates, but he knew that the MD ball flew way straighter off the tee, and then if he was in play, and he could smash it, like he was really long. And if he was in play off the tee, it didn't, like, a little bit of touch around the greens didn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he was in play, he was 300 yards in those days plus, and then from there golf was easy. But if he was kind of a little bit off with the Pro V that spun way more than the MD, golf, he was a bit more out of play, maybe behind a tree, maybe out of play off the tee, and all of a sudden you're going to shoot 76, 77, right? So yeah, he'd call the doctor. Now I think every ball we play nowadays is like that old MD.
Oh, it's I haven't played in about a year and a half, but I'm a long ways away from the speeds I was swinging at when I was done playing. But I'm anxious to kind of get back into not competing maybe at the local level, but just to get out there and hang with the guys again. But just to see
Yeah,
how much distance am swinging, maybe a few miles an hour slower, but still hitting at the same distance. It's
yeah, no,
I can
it's
see where
crazy.
the guys like Brandel make that argument where they're against it. I can see that perspective.
Yeah, I have a Hogan Speed Slot driver that I got in high school, and I used that driver right on up until probably I played it intermittently during college. I always kind of go between that and a TaylorMade Tour Burner, and then I used it a little bit as a pro mini tours in Florida, but I always kind of gravitate back toward the Tour Burner or whatever. Or I was with Mizuno back then; they had a metal wood. I forget the name of it, but I pulled it out, and if I smoke my driver right now, I can fly it. I still swing it about, maybe, if I swing hard, I swing at 110, 112. And if I smoke it, I can carry it 280, 290. If I smoke my Hogan driver, like right in the nuts, it'll go 240 in the air. That is absolutely smashed. 43 inch, some kind of steel shaft. I think it was a Hogan 4 or whatever that shaft was called.
Mm-hmm.
And the head is barely bigger than the golf ball, right? So when you look down at it, it's intimidating, and then you set your club down like the new modern drivers, and you're like, man, it's a toaster on the end of a stick by comparison, right? Like, how can you miss?
Yeah, you
You know,
wonder how
and,
you
and
ever hit the other.
I know, and so and I don't know, we're just kind of going on tangents here, but you think about Major League Baseball, right? They can't go play pro baseball at that level with aluminum bats, but you can
Mm-mm.
come out of college, you can play college ball with aluminum bats, right? A guy named Joe Carter, not the Joe Carter from the Toronto Blue Jay Joe Carter, but another Joe Carter that played in New Mexico State, was a walk-on while I was going to school there, and hit some amount of dingers that he was an All-American, because that year he hit, I don't know, 20 something dingers in college baseball. And that guy could not hit a ball worth a darn with a wooden bat. No chance.
Hmm.
Right? But with an aluminum bat, he could hit it and get it out of the park. No problem. So, it just goes to show you, right? It's equipment, the ball, and I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this. I mean, I love golf, and it's fun to smash it, but I think a lot has been lost with golf course. And maybe I'm just old. Maybe people are going to go, oh, Martin, go, you old crotchety, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that a 420-yard par four should be, quote, long, and it's not. It's a driver and it's a flip.
That's right.
It's right, and it used to be something that was formidable. It was a driver in, in heavens forbid it was into the wind, right? I mean, because if you hit it 270, you still got a buck 50 left into the wind. Well, you didn't hit it 270 if you're into the wind. You hit it 245 if you're lucky. You got a lot left,
Right, you're trying to keep
right?
4 iron down under the wind.
You know it. And so, the game's changed so much that no, I dare say Division One men's golf. If there's a kid out on any team now that isn't whose ball speed isn't at least 160, right? Who isn't at least swinging it 108, 110, and I'm talking that would be a skinny little guy probably. That 160 is probably the lowest, and maybe I'm speaking out of school here, but I bet you 160 ball speed is on the low end, and all the kids are between once, and there's some kid on the team who's got 185 ball speed, and he's flying at 315. Now, he may not be able to find it, but it's going that far, you know. And so I don't know. Designers in the day did not mean for that.
No, I think something's got to happen, whether it's bifurcation or the ball, but rolling something back. Because, like you said, it's making things obsolete. There's no art to it anymore.
Right, there isn't. You tee it up, and the drivers are shockingly straight, like they really are. Like they, it's funny is just hitting a few balls in my garage, and I have a little studio in my garage, and I've got a launch monitor there. I had probably 20 drivers today just goofing around, and I had two balls that had zero spin axis off a driver, zero, like it didn't curve. Okay, off of a top line launch monitor. Okay, and now I never, I hardly ever hit an iron shot, not purposely. I just kind of hit a draw. It just kind of comes out of me. But you know, to hit a driver hard and not have it curve, like that's crazy, right? Like just a straight roasted ball that doesn't curve. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, now you're like Mo Norman, one of your old
Well,
mentors.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, well, that's nuts, right? But I mean, it's just like for me, it's more alarming than anything else to look down and see a zero spin axis because you know the clubs are so good, the ball's so good, and yeah, there's golfers out there who struggle. I mean, I teach them every day. There's no question about that. The game's a hard game, but when you get these golfers that are, you know, have like you and I, when we picked up the game and worked our tail off and had some decent mentorship, and now all of a sudden you get pretty good at this, and you're watching players that are better than you, and you're trying to mimic what they do, and you know now these kids, the speed's up and they're better athletes, and it's crazy what's going on, just insane. It's fun to watch though. I got to admit it is fun to watch, but it's a tick boring, but it's a fun. So I don't know if that's a you know a oxymoron, but I like watching them bomb it, but then I would like to see them hit more than, you know, 9-iron into every par 4. So I don't know what the answer is.
I'm glad I don't have to make that decision.
Yeah, me too.
I'm disliked enough. I don't want to be hated.
You know, I was thinking, where was I? I was at Edgewood Tahoe yesterday, and that place is one of my favorite places on the planet. So that's where they play the Accenture or the oh man, what's it called? It's a celebrity. Who's the sponsor? Oh gosh. Anyway,
the celebrity event.
American Century, the American
Yep.
Century, and Romo won it going away. And Romo, you know, is really kind of up in his game. He's playing really good golf. And you know, I know Cameron McCormick and the guys at Altus in Dallas are helping him out a little bit. You know, you got this great athlete. He's done with football. He loves golf, and he's, you know, trying to make a little run at different things in golf. But I was raking the bunker, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, it made me think of Nicklaus at Muirfield a few years back, when Nicklaus purposely took one of the, you know, those little notches in the rake so that you couldn't rake the bunker smooth. Do you remember that?
I thought that was a great idea.
I did too, and the players went crazy, right? They lost it, and it was I thought, man, you know what? You actually made a bunker a real penalty rather than, you know, you get in a bunker, and if you're a decent bunker player, and not only just a decent bunker player, but a tour level maintained bunker, it's cheating. It's basically cheating. You know, I mean, you've played high level golf, as have I. When you the bunkers, for those listeners out there, I was a club pro for 16 years after my brief playing history. Members walk into my office and say, "Man, the bunker is terrible," and I could say, "Okay, which bunker?" And they'd say, "Oh, the bunker on 6." I'd say, "Okay." And I did this one time. I'd say, let's go check it out." And a good player can put a ball in the bunker, and they can get it out. They can probably get it within 10, 15 feet, maybe better. No big deal. Because a good player gets in a bunker, looks at the sand, feels the sand, kind of
assesses a lie. Is the first thing they do.
Yeah, they judge it, and then they say, okay, this is the feel and this is the speed, and and poof, out comes the ball, and it's usually a decent shot, maybe close, maybe 20 feet, but something functional, right? Not zipping across the green or sculled into the lip or whatever. But a tour level bunker, when I was involved with the Bob Hope, my first club pro job, they'd send an advanced team out. The advanced team would poke the bunkers, prod the bunkers, make sure they're pretty much perfect, pretty much to where excluding oddities of weather, right?
Mm-hmm.
The regular golfer out there, the maintenance crew, yeah, they try to keep the bunkers nice, but let's face it, it's a pain in the rear, and the bunkers are a little inconsistent for the average bear. But if you're a good player, you can get in a bunker, you can assess the lie, you can make it get out reasonably close. And guess what? If you can't, too bad. You hit a bad shot to be there in the first place. Take your lump, get it out, two putt, move on, right? So there's another thing with bunkers. I mean, they're just maintained so well now. It's crazy.
You grew up in Canada. What is it that you think makes hockey players, as we're talking about athletes, so well adapted to golf? Is it the eye-hand coordination, the core stability from being on the ice, is same sort of movement in a plane?
A good fist fight from time to time, I think actually. No, I think yeah, you're sort of bent over whacking something, right?
Mm-hmm.
This golf course, it's still in my top five of all time. It's such a great track. The National is an amazing golf course. Anyway, the occasional high level athlete would come roll through there. I mean, I met George Brett there. Oh, I mean, so many guys. George Brett was a good golfer, and all these guys would come through, like baseball players, hockey players, and one, you just have at that level, you just have this amazing athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like more so than the average bear. So here's this guy or gal, and the National wasn't so much gals; it was a men's only club. But you have these guys roll through there that were exceptional athletes in whatever their chosen thing was, and so they're way more attuned to themselves. Like awareness is a huge thing. Like I teach golf schools. I teach.
Hey, Martin.
Yep.
There
I lose you?
Yeah, you cut out. It's cut out a couple times.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Not sure
Let
where
me,
it is.
is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, back to where we were. So, elite athletes, not only are they bigger, stronger, faster than most of us, they are more attuned to themselves. Like they have more physical awareness to where they are in space. So teaching golf schools, like I teach 300 people a year in golf schools, and some people have very little awareness of themselves in space. Like I can describe things about hands or arms or those kind of things. A high level athlete can go, okay, and they can imagine themselves in that spatial awareness moving through those planes. And man, it's pretty not easy for them to play golf, but it's the learning curve is so much smaller that you get these great athletes and then their elevated sense of awareness, and man, they turn into golfers pretty quick, and hockey players are just in that group of great athletes.
I asked Dan Hellman, had him on, and he's trained a lot of guys on the tour, and because of some HEPA rules and so forth, he couldn't say who, but evidently some pretty high level guys, right? And I asked him, I said, look, you spent better part of 4 to 5 years out on the tour watching these guys. I said, what separates the elite from, let's say, the guys who are maybe win once, but that's it, or a guy struggling to make the cut every week? And he didn't even hesitate, and he said, pure talent. He said, sure. He goes, I've got guys that work their rear end off. Like they go to the gym in the morning, then they go to the range, then they go do their warm up, then they get worked on by me, then they go their round and they get done and they go back to the range, and they just work and they have to grind for every inch they get, where other guys might not hit balls for a few days, show up to a tournament, get loose, get ready, and they're off and running like a piece of cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's no question, right? And it's sometimes you look at that, and as golfers like you and I have played, where you go, man, that's just not fair.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fair. it's hard to imagine just how skilled some people get. Now you take that kind of talent, right? And then you give that, if that talent has passion and desire, look out, right? And that's basically, who am I talking about? Tiger
Right.
Woods,
Yep.
right? Brooks Koepka. I mean, you take a guy like Hale Irwin, who is, underrated, but as a Champions Tour player, beat everybody sideways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great athlete, passionate. Jack Nicklaus, same kind of thing. He was an underrated athlete, one of the better, probably thinkers, maybe the best thinker ever on the golf course. You got Arnold Palmer, excellent athlete, super passionate. Was he the thinker Nicklaus was? I don't think so. Right? Player, athlete, right? Highly passionate.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if player was, 30 pounds heavier and 4 inches taller. Like,
Oh,
who'd have touched him,
nobody. Yeah, that has been
right?
a whole different
Nobody.
world.
Right, because he would have had that. He was long. Don't get me wrong. He could smash it, but imagine if he was a big fella. Look out, right? It would have been over. So as amazing as he was. So no, just fun.
Let me ask you on because it's well known that you were able to be mentored to a large extent by George Knudsen, the great
Mm-hmm.
Canadian player and instructor.
Yep.
How do you blend that upbringing, so to speak, in your game and your instruction and your philosophies, and make it work with today's technology? How do you kind of blend those two? Do you walk that fine line and use some from one, some from the other?
Yeah. It's great. It's a good question because I think the stuff I learned from George is so helpful when it comes to golf school situations, and that a golf school is a little journey over a few days. And the stuff I learned from George, like swing the weight of a club from a starting form to a finishing form. Okay, so just that phrase, swing the weight of a club from a starting form to a finishing form. Okay, that's got such a powerful thing because whether you're a high level player or a newbie, we all take the weight of a club. We hold this stick. It's got the weight at the end of it, and we swing it, and we try to feel the weight of it, and we try to connect where we start, some kind of developing of power, speed, and a backswing, and collect the ball until we get to a finish, right? So that you could say that to a great player, you could say that to a complete newbie. And so in George's case, the thing that he said, he used to say, never do anything in the expense of balance, right? So I grew up in that mindset. Well, now, even though I teach that to a lot of newbies because I don't want a newbie to take and swing the weight of a club to where they're going to fall over. If I have a kid who's got his hands on functionally, who swings the weight of the club nicely, then guess what? It's not even about being in balance. It's about, okay, kid, let's see how fast you can move that thing. Let's see, because there's skills that I want to develop, and one of them is moving the club outrageously fast in somewhat control to where you can kind of manage the face and a little bit, and the ball can kind of go sort of where you want it to. And then the surrounding skills, well, guess what? Pitching the ball, chipping the ball, putting the ball, shot selection, peripheral shots, meaning around the rough, by trees, off side hills, down hills, all that stuff. It's all skill development. So I take a lot of what Knudsen taught me, which was like some of these like nice phrases and neat thoughts. And then that's how I get most people going. And then once they get to a certain point, then it's like, okay, if you're in third gear, that's great. Let's see if we can max you out and maybe get these RPMs up a little bit. And balance at that point, it's not necessarily a fundamental anymore. Yeah, like big players that smash it don't fall over, but their feet, like Knudsen used to say that, he wanted you to swing with your left foot kind of flat on the ground. He always mentioned Hogan and to me, some of that was a bit of a contradiction. And I'm not trying to knock George at all. It's just the game has changed to where it's not this gentle, posed, finish perfect kind of game anymore. It's this, okay, aim it, smash it, go get it. Hopefully it's in the shortcut and you can, play an aggressive shot to a pin. And if it's not, okay, now what shot do you play? And does that next play make you have to chip it, or do you just have a 40 footer, which is fine too? So I owe a debt of gratitude to George because the way he presented material, the way he carried himself, those are things that I think of every day, when I'm talking to a
Mm-hmm.
group or coaching someone, and to watch him hit it, right? Like he taught a group one way and then he played another. He played an aggressive, hit it far style. The video that you probably saw, the natural swing motion where he's in Bermuda and they've
Mm-hmm.
got the really bad music in the background and he's wearing this like Bill Cosby sweater. Like that's a posed video, right? That's him trying to be probably over the top within what he's trying to teach. But if you saw him play, it was way more aggressive swing, way more dynamic than the video that he put out to the masses. Now people love the book, love the video, it's great. But when the guy played, he hit it hard. It wasn't exact. He didn't like smash it and stand there like a statue after he hit it. There was a smash and a retraction. Then if the ball was ripped, he picked up his tee and he lit another cigarette and away he went.
Yeah, there's definitely
So,
a tournament swing, especially when you're playing at that level he did. Um,
oh yeah,
People say, well, how they hit it? Did they really hit it that far? I think, yeah. And, you hit it. And when you're playing at that level, you hit it. You have your long when you're playing at your friends, but then you have that little extra gear when you're in tournament
hmm
because, your adrenaline's going. Even if it's a first round, it's a Thursday round, you're still pumped up because you're in the arena, so to speak.
right, yeah. A good example. I used to teach a player, Nick Taylor, who I started working with him in probably 2012, and he won the 2014 Sanderson Farms, and it was like one of the first few events he played in on tour, and he's not a long hitter. I mean, he hits it really efficiently, but he's not a super high speed guy. Like the fastest he ever got my TrackMan up to was like 109. So for a tour player, that's pretty slow.
Mm-hmm.
But his efficiencies were great. He flew every ball about 275. He hit up on it, centered strikes, low spin, high launch, like really efficient, strike. So in the tournament, I think John Rollins was leading, and John was having a bit of a tough day, and Nick could putt, and he hit it, far enough, and he, good short game, and tough competitor. And as things worked out in his favor, John Rollins had a bit of a falter, and then Nick, made a couple putts. Well, they had TrackMan on the golf course, and to your point about adrenaline, so he hit a couple drives that Sunday. That TrackMan registered him up at 113. So being pumped up, right? You think some guys are, holding back and swinging smoother to hit it and play. Not Nick.
No,
Nick got more pumped up and
going for it
smashed it.
harder. Yep.
Absolutely.
Who
Going harder, hitting it better.
who else did you really learn from as you were progressing through not so much through the ranks, but going through the steps of your career from when you kind of
You
got
know, so
involved in golf and then just
so as a young man, it was a lot of George Knutson because he was great to me and I was a part of his junior program, and he was no nonsense. And what I meant by that was, and I love saying this to people. So most of my clientele, and I'll get to the others, but here's what I like to think, how I like to think about this now. As a student wants a lesson from you, so they're your client. In a way, you're supposed to be nice, right? You're supposed to be nice to them. Hi, sir, how are you? Let's have a great lesson, and everything's rosy and fluffy, and you're great. And George wasn't like that. George was, okay, son, this works, this doesn't work. Here's what you need to fix. And so I always spin something now when I do a golf school. People get there and they always say, hey, watch your videos online, and I like the way you communicate. And I say, thank you for that. And then after breakfast, I get them all out in the range, and I say, okay, I've got a magic wand. I'm going to make you all 14 years old. Poof, you're 14 years old. And then they're looking at me silly because most everybody at my golf school is like 50 or older. There's the occasional 40-year-old, but most people that come see me have the time and they have the money. Those are my favorite people. So when I hit them with the magic wand, I make them 14. And I say to them, this is the scenario. You're in high school with freshmen. You want to play on my golf team. You're not going to make it this year. I've got a bunch of seniors. We win the state championship every year. You're not going to crack the lineup. I want you to make my team. Okay? Here's what you need to do to make my team. I care about you making my team. I want you to make me look good. right? So I kind of flip it around a bit to where it's not like, okay, I don't want to just give you a little band-aid so you go do something fractionally better so your 19 handicap is now a 16. Okay, I want you to understand the game a lot more. I want you to challenge yourself a great deal. And so that when you leave me, you're armed with some understanding and a little roadmap so that you can get way better. And that's how George was. He was no BS, right? It wasn't patronizing, oh, way to go, swing smooth, keep your head down,
Mm-hmm.
right? It wasn't. It was like, okay, this isn't working. You got to work on this. It's not very good still. Keep working. Next week it'll be fine. It's not going to be good today, but just keep doing what you're doing. I know you're not hitting it well, and it's okay. Miss again. And you're like, what do you mean miss again? Just keep missing. What do you mean keep missing? Well, you're going to hit it. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to hit it soon, right? But so many students go to a lesson, and if they don't hit the ball nicely right away, it's like the lesson something's wrong, right? It's like the pro must not know anything because I'm not hitting it well right away.
Right.
And so the other thing I do with students is I say, let me show you how to juggle. You've probably heard this spiel before, but I say, come on up here, and I pick somebody from the audience. I say, do you juggle? They say no. I say, well, I'm going to show you how. Here's exactly how you juggle. Here's two balls in one hand, one in the other. Toss it up and catch it. Here's how you throw one ball up and catch it. Okay, that's part one. Part two, toss one ball up while it's in the air, toss the other one underneath it, and then catch those balls and don't even do anything with the third ball yet. And nobody can. So 19 out of 20 people can toss a ball up in the air and catch the other ball. Now, 1 out of 20 can toss one ball up and toss one ball under and catch them both. Okay, and if you don't know how to juggle, nobody can juggle right away. Impossible. So, but when they're learning how to juggle, they're not upset. They're giggly. They're like, hey, this is kind of, I don't know how to do this. That's okay. But yeah, with golf, they come to a school and maybe they're 19 handicap or 20 handicap or 12 handicap or 8 handicap. If they don't get it right away, they're upset. And I try to tell them it's not your job to hit it well quite yet. It's your job just to try, just to make the coach happy because I want you to make my team. So I kind of learned that from George, which was cool. Moving along as far as influences in teaching, I read a ton of books as a kid. I just enjoyed reading golf books. I probably read the Modern Fundamentals, the 1951 version, Ben Hogan's Modern Fundamentals, I don't know, 20 times. And, it's Mark Evershed, a Toronto teacher, a very good player back in his day, excellent teacher, kind of a golf machine guy. He was kind of a mentor to me when George passed away in 1989. I'd say Mike Hebron was a big influence to me, an Australian teaching pro named Peter Croker.
I remember Peter.
Yeah.
Peter was hanging around Hilton Head in the early to mid '90s, and when he was
Oh,
on the
was he?
cover of Golf Digest. Yeah, Jim Faree was
Yep.
working with him quite a bit, and Jim had him in
That's
the
right.
Hilton Head.
That's right. Peter was he taught me a lot of neat things that I still use today. I really do. And trying to think who I when I was in college, I came out to see Mike LeBove a couple times in
Mm-hmm.
Scottsdale. I drove from New Mexico State and saw Mike, and Mike helped me right away. He explained I used to have thoughts of, or I had I didn't quite understand the geometry of a circle, and I know that sounds kind of technical, but obviously we want to hit a ball down some kind of target line toward a pin. The problem is, since golf's a side-on game, we have to swing kind of in a circle. We can't really bend ourselves into a straight line. Yet a lot of golfers, and especially higher handicappers, and even like decent players like I was in college, you still try to make, kind of force it down the line too much. And so Mike LeBeau, the first time I met him, he's like, your swing looks pretty good, son. But he said, your through swing doesn't travel up and left enough. It travels, I had kind of a scissory exit where my hands kind of went straight down the line and the club
Mm-hmm.
kind of flipped a bit. And I could, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to stand there, have a pitching wedge in my hands and miss the green to the left because I hit some kind of a, flippy wedge shot. It was driving me crazy. And that's after hitting a good tee-ball. And so spending a bit of time with Mike, Mike's like, yeah, he kind of worked on the feels from impact to the finish, which ultimately changed impact a little bit, and to where I felt pretty good about starting a ball down a line, and it wasn't going to, go left too much. Um, I'd say that there's been a ton of coaches in modern times that I've had the benefit of being friends with. Like one of my buddies is Jeff Ritter was a kid I went to college with, and he's an excellent coach. He's at the Pronghorn now. Dana Dahlquist, I got to spend some time around. Andrew Rice. I've enjoyed watching guys like Como and the way they describe things. And I mean, the list is, and George Gankus is another one who's a beauty, right? Who I get a kick out of the way he describes
He
things.
does have a
You
way with
know,
words, doesn't he?
oh, he's hysterical, but it's great, right? It's fun. He's got, it's not my audience. Like I'm not trying to, I know what my niche is, and I just kind of try to stay in my kind of wheelhouse, which is, I consult with a lot of good players, but then I teach a lot of guys who are 50 and older, and I love those guys. Like I say, they have time and money and they come see me. We have a blast, and I'm 50, so I'm not too far off their age. And, I'm not really teaching that many young kids anymore because frankly, I hate to say it, I charge a lot. So, there's a ton of teachers out there that are available to those type of players, and that's great. So, but
When you learn from Michael Hebron, because he came to
yeah,
Ferris State. I remember he
yeah,
did
yeah,
a teaching seminar, but it was a number of years ago as I started to study how people comprehend information, right? Like, am I saying it in a way that they're going to comprehend it? And then found out 8 intelligences, and you get into spatial and hands-on, visual, interpersonal, and all that stuff. But he
yep.
was one of the first pros that I had found that had gotten into that. Did you discuss any things like that with him? Because I know he was
You know,
kind of getting deep into it at one time.
oh no, so he went from being highly technical years ago, like hardcore golf machine
Mm-hmm.
into more, way more like what you're suggesting, like trying to understand the player and paint the simplest picture possible for that person to, you know, have an understanding of how to maybe move differently to influence the ball. So I've seen Michael. My first experience with him was probably when I was 25 or 6. And then, flash 20 years later, and it was a completely different presentation. One was, pretty hardcore golf machine. And then the next one was more, choosing, here's a word. This word makes way more impact to this person than this word. So it wasn't about making somebody understand what you had to say. It was about more, reading them and presenting to that person. And I like to think I'm decent at that. I do my best to try to talk to who's in front of me. I always want to know what somebody does for a living. I always want to know what sport they played. I want, of course, I want to know if they've had any injuries. I shake their hand firmly to kind of just quickly get an assessment of, what am I feeling in their hands and in their forearms. Um, I watch their gait when they walk, right? I don't necessarily put them through a big fitness screen, but I try to pick up whatever physical clues I can, if it's a first intro with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's super easy nowadays to assess somebody's ability because I get a kick out of this. My golf school, we do a brief test. They hit a few balls on TrackMan. They come inside the studio. They take a club, but it's got gears markers on it. The 3D markers on
Right.
it, and then they've got to hit some short pitch shots. And then people will say, "Man, I used to play so well," or "Man, I'm just not hitting it very well." And I'll say, "Well," or I'll, halfway through the day, they'll say to me, "Man, I just can't do this." And then I'll look them in the eye and I'll say, I'll say, "You couldn't do it when you got here." You know, I mean, I hate to be, and I mean it. I mean, you could, buddy, I hate to tell you, but you couldn't do it when you got here. And they'll look at me like, did you just say that? I'm like, yeah, I did, because I don't want to patronize you. I want you to get better. It's like, students will come to the golf school and they have very dysfunctional motions, but yet the ball can go down the fairway sorta, and they'll get it sorta by the green and chip it on, and and it's a big event to shoot 90 or 89 or 94 or whatever, and that might be somebody that's got some physical abilities, like with some speed, right? Or and then when we go to make the change, it's amazing how somebody really wants to cuddle and hold on to, and just not dare let go of that 92. Like, man, it's my 92, and and
It's like their
and I
safe
and I don't.
space to use
You know
modern
what? It is.
language.
It's their 92, and that's mine, and I don't want you messing with it. But yet I'm going to come to a golf school, but don't mess with my 92. And then I'll say, well, what are you really losing here? You know, if you surrender to this, you can get so much better if you'll just kind of expand the horizons and miss for a while. Like I tell people, go ahead and miss one for me, right? Because I'm not standing there expecting them to flush it, because people have an unreal expectation of what they should be able to do. And I'm like, let's build you up a little bit. Let's have you understand some face and path and some of the things that good players do really consciously, really consciously, so that it can kind of fall into subconscious so they can perform and they can play the game pretty nicely, right? And it is amazing how many people really want to hold on to like their 92 or their 94 or their 89 when they have so much more upside if they'll just surrender a bit and be a little silly and miss for a while, because the upside of the change is massive.
Yeah, that's a question that I usually ask later on, but I always ask everybody if they think that failure is a good thing. And I would say in the
Well,
profession we're in, that, and in just about everything, it's not only a good thing; it's a necessary thing.
oh yeah, totally. This crazy game, and Robin Williams, rest in peace, Robin. But that skit he does about golf, right? Everybody's probably seen that on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best skit ever. It's so funny. I could go watch it right now and still, really get a kick out of it. And I've watched it 50 times. It's at this crazy game that is really so challenging that a certain few make look relatively easy. And in it, even the best can look like idiots, and then the newest golfer can get lucky and look amazing, right? So you have to be able to kind of understand yourself a little bit, understand if some basic stuff, and not fool yourself. Like I think a lot of people like to kind of fool themselves, like, oh, I'm pretty good, I can do this. Well, no, you really can't. So let's like target that and let's make that better. You know?
Yeah, it's not what you can do once out of 100; it's what you can do consistently.
Yeah, totally. Right? And I don't even know if it's the words consistent. What I like, it's like it's
Yeah,
sort of
that's a better word.
predictable, right? You know,
Have you ever heard that there's a personality trait type test you can take? It's called the Braverman test.
I have not.
I'll send you the link when we're done. You
I
can
love
only
it.
take it once because you're not allowed to change answers and think about it. It's like, okay, here's all these questions, and it's like yes, no, true, false, all the way through.
Yeah,
I haven't done it yet
yeah.
because talk about that's my 92. I don't know if I want to find out the answers that it gives. Um,
I love it.
but I talked about it briefly with Tim Cook one day because his degree's in
Yeah.
pedagogy, and we never got into it. We got kind of cut off or interrupted from somebody, but I'd be very interested to check that one out. But I'm trying
Yeah,
to
send me
get
that link.
as far as learning styles like Mike was doing Hebron.
Yeah.
I get from what I'm told, one of the world leaders in that is Dr. Howard Gardner. He's up in Harvard, and I'm going to reach out to him to be on the show. Now he'll probably say, well, what's this old psychologist at Harvard got to do with golf? But I'll explain it to him and say, hey, look, a lot of people, myself, a lot of instructors that would like to know how to relate and talk things and explain things to people so they can absorb it. Because I'm a big believer that if you can say something a certain way to somebody and they absorb it faster, it's like eating healthy, right? If you're eating
Yeah.
good food, you're going to be healthy. You're going to absorb things faster. Your body's not going to reject it. If you're eating like, junk food, your body's not going to build as well. You're going to be more prone to disease and injure yourself and so on. So I've got the theory in my head that if you can do that with students, then they can progress faster or have a better opportunity to progress faster.
No, I think that's absolutely. And the using language, using the correct language with people, and teaching someone, I find it interesting. Sometimes, like I'll say very little. Sometimes I'll speak a lot, not overwhelming, but speak a lot of words. Sometimes I will kind of what I call memory anchors, meaning that I'll grab somebody's forearm kind of harder than they like. Like I'll squeeze their hands a certain way, or I'll grab their wrists a certain way, and I'll use a bit of force that would be a little bit alarming,
Mm-hmm.
not to hurt them, but just so that there's a bit of a memory there, right? And I got that from Mark Evershed. Mark would coach, and he would, he'd put you in a position, like say he was kind of working at P4 at the top of your swing, and he's got you kind of posing at P3.5 or whatever. He might come over and kind of grab both your forearms and give him a pretty good little squeeze, like a certainty there, and then he'd move your hands a certain way, and you'd be like, oh, okay. And so those kind of touch points, and some people might think that's kind of creepy, but it's not. It was impactful. It's like, okay, wow, okay. I kind of feel that. I feel what he's meaning there, because it's like there's a memory trigger there with that little grab or that little, motion of my hands. And another who did that really well was Mike LeBove. He would take the golf club just below your grip, and then move you however. And that was the first person who ever did that to me. So there was that kinesthetic feeling that he presented, right? And then there was certain touch points that Mark Evershed really emphasized. He was a golf machine guy. And so LeBeau, I don't know what his background, well, he spent a lot of time with Hardy, and then he spent a lot of time, Sandy LeBeau is, oh gosh, what legendary teacher your way.
Jack's daughter, Lumpkin.
Yep. Yeah, Jack's daughter, yeah. So Sandy, right? So you got this situation where you got Mike from Louisiana. I'm not sure what how that all worked out with Jack. But anyway, he was a good player, won the Arizona Open, and got into teaching. He was an amazing teacher, helped a lot of players understand and get better at golf. And then he had his ways to convey his message, right? And, I look back at the ways these guys did it, and I tried to kind of pluck my favorite pieces from all the ones that I really, had experience with. And I, try to do them justice. And I try to give credit where credit's due. Like I always love mentioning, back in the day with this friend of mine who was up in Scottsdale, or my coach in Toronto was George, or whoever it is, because I don't feel like a bunch of my thoughts were, I didn't invent it, right? Like some of the things maybe are unique to me, but they're not. It's more of like a patchwork of these neat fellas and gals, for that matter, that I spent time with. Like Pia and Lynn are great. They're wonderful. I've had one of their former employees works for me now. He's an awesome coach. So, I've read their stuff. So naturally, I've got some of the, what they do amazingly well to get players into a nice framework to play good golf. I use some of their stuff, and some of it's a blend of how I like to see it and how I've done it and do it. So, I think coaching is be exposed to as many coaches as you can. See how they present the material. Don't be afraid to come out of your box as far as the way you describe things, and maybe like training aids. A Tour Striker, my business is I've got a lot of training aids. I feel like if I can put somebody in kind of a training aid that gets the feel that message quicker, then I'm going to put you in a Smart Ball or an Educator or a PlaneMate or whatever it is to kind of get you to understanding faster. Now we're going to take that away, put it back, take it away, put it back, until you can kind of do it without the training aid. But if the training aid helps you understand it quicker, yeah, I'm a big fan of, expediting the process.
Well, how about that for a perfect segue? Because that's what I want to get into next. Is you've done a great job with your line of products. The Tour Striker line. Unless some golfer's been living under a rock, they don't know what it is. But what do you have? About 15 different things now?
I think on the website we have 8, and it's been fun. I've tinkered with stuff my whole life. I mean, I think back, the first time I tried to get a product on the market, I was about maybe 22. I was still on the Canadian tour, maybe 24 actually. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't have the money to do it. And I actually went and met an industrial engineer guy or designer, and there was a possibility. And then sure enough, I didn't do it. And a few years later, I saw it on the market. And then this other gizmo that I thought would help people, I didn't do it. I saw it on the market a few years later. And then, when I was my second Club Pro job in 2006, I'm in Reno, Nevada, and I'm teaching this guy who is a lovely guy, super smart, retired engineer. And I forget what kind of engineer he was, but he was a smart dude. And he was a tough student in that no matter what I said to him, okay, the words and some of the motions, I couldn't get to him in a couple lessons, and he was a member, he bought like a 6 pack. And I thought, okay, I got to get him to understand how to use this club differently. And like flashback to Hebron, Hebron always said, okay, you have to understand the head, the face, and the shaft. You have to understand those three things. The shaft's got to swing on a kind of a pitch relative to the ground. You can call that plane if you want to. It's got to pass through, it can't be handle high or handle too low. So that was, the shaft. The face has to be pointed somewhere, and then the head's got some weight to it, and then that weight stresses the hands. So maybe that's his soft way of talking golf machine stuff. So this guy, I would try to kind of go down that road, and he could do the newts and stuff pretty easy as far as no ball, kind of rotate, relocate onto a lead heel up on his trail toe and face the target and that kind of stuff. And we were able to assemble a grip, and his grip looked pretty good. But then his intent was broken. Like, he didn't really understand the weight of the club, and he didn't know how the club worked. So I thought, all right, wait a second here. He's got this club. It's got a weight at the end, but this guy won't let this club kind of have a sense of swing and a sense of whip. You just couldn't get past that. And who I've left out actually a lot is Ben Doyle, the famous coach from Carmel and golf machine guy. He was a great influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ben, there's always a sense of the weight of the club in the hands, and the shaft's got to be mildly forward leaning at impact, and not to force it there, but just to let your body kind of allow that to happen. But if you don't understand how the club works, then it's probably not going to happen. So I'm doing these drills with this guy and trying to see which one's going to be sticky and help him. And I used to take a Sharpie marker, and I'd take a Sharpie and I would draw a dot on about the third, fourth groove of a club, 8-iron typically. And I would say, okay, here's a dot, and it's a little smaller than a dime. And I go, you see that dot right there? Watch how I can transfer that dot onto a ball, and I can smear that dot on the face of a club. So I'd hit a shot, and I'd say, okay, see, somehow that I got this dot onto the ball. So you do that with a combination of a little bit of forward lean, a little bit of downward strike, and he'd look at me and go, okay, and then he'd try to lift one off the grass every time. I thought, okay, I'm not getting to him. And I thought, well, if I don't need the bottom couple grooves, I'm going to go figure out a way to take them away so that somebody can't just kind of hang back and hoist one off the ground and, go shoot 85 or 84
Mm-hmm.
or 89 if they get decent at it, right? So I went in the cart barn that day. After his second lesson, it was a man, what was his name? Jerry Barber Shankless Club was in our lost and found for years. Do you remember those Jerry
Yep.
Barber Shankless irons? Well, this happened to be a 7-iron, and so back when a 7-iron was a lot of loft on it. So I thought, okay, I pulled it out and I took it to the grinder. We had a little bit of a club building station in the cart barn, and I started grinding, and it took a long time to grind off, a rounded edge across the face from like the third groove down to the sole, right? It took for a long time. I mean, I had dust everywhere. I looked like I think I ruined that shirt covered in stuff. And so I got this thing just where
I
I
think
wanted
you've
it.
made up for it. I think the tour striker made
Yeah.
up for it.
No, I think I made up for it. I got another funny story about that if you remind me. So I'm looking at this thing, I'm setting it down, going, okay, I think this is kind of cool. I mean, I've got this to where the only way you can hit this thing is to have a bit of forward shaft lean. Okay. So he comes out for his next lesson. I say, hey, Peter, check this out. He looks at it, he goes, what is that? It's got this odd looking hosel, but more than that, this face is rounded off at the bottom, right? And he goes, and it's rounded off quite a ways up the face. He goes, you can't hit that. I said, watch. Yes, you can. So without getting too, over the top, I just made a swing and the ball flew and it was a nice shot. And he looked at me, he's like, whoa. And I said, watch. And I just kind of showed him how that loft that was way up the face now with a bit of lean, that elevated leading edge that is falsely raised up on that training club can get lower and get below the equator of the ball, and the ball can go up. So that image, when I gave him the club, he got it. Like, that's when he went, oh, I see, right? And so then I wish I could tell you he's a scratch golfer now. He's not. He shoots 85, but he was a newbie who couldn't break 100. So just the fact that the guy looked at a golf club completely differently after that. I went home and I said to my wife, Stacy, I go, babe, I messed with, remember that club I was telling you I was messing with? She's like, yeah. I go, that thing really made an impression on the guy today, like a massive impression. Like he changed pretty quick. And she says, "Oh, cool." She go, and then I said, "I think we might have something here." And then to her credit, she was like gung ho. She's like, "Let's find an attorney. Let's see if we can patent it. Let's see if we can get it." So she was the one who was like, "All right, let's go." And then we did. It took a while, but we did. We got it patented and then started making them. And I'll never forget 2009. 2009 was crazy. So imagine Mom, Pa, Stacy, Chuck, and myself. We take one of my assistants at the facility I was at back in Bend, Oregon. It was called Tethro, and we went to the PGA show. Okay, and we set up one of those booths, like a 5-footer, in where they put the new inventors kind of stuff. They stuff you back in the corner back there.
Way in the back where no one can find you.
Exactly, nobody can find me back there. I'm in the corner back there, and I've got the little table, and I've got a little picture of the Tour Striker head and that's just it. I'm just me. And people are walking up and they're looking, some of them are giving me that, the pleasant glance and no thank you and walking by. And then I started kind of wrangling people and, hey, let me show you this. Come on. And I'm, being like a snake oil salesman. And so when I had people there, I had a ball on a table, and then I had the Tour Striker had that elevated leading edge. And then when I showed how that elevated leading edge with forward shaftling could get below the equator of the ball, people kind of had this look like, oh gosh, I see it. And, it was cool because somewhere in the day there, I want to say, I don't know if it was day one, might have been day one, Randy Smith came by. And so Randy Smith was at, Brook Hollow, I want to say a great club like that, or one of those great Dallas clubs. Anyway, he comes by and he's looking at me and he's looking down at the pot and he's looking up at me and he's like, damn, why didn't I think of that? And then I'm thinking, man, that was cool. And he goes and he finds Chuck Cook, another Texan. He brings Chuck over. And Chuck Cook's like, son, that's pretty good. He goes, I can understand how that can help people understand how to use the club differently. And, and that was pretty cool because when those two guys were watching that, there was a guy from, I want to say, Golf Week magazine, James Achenbach, and it was one of those Auchenbach names. Anyway, he's kind of over there, kind of like a spy looking in, and I recognize him because I always put a photograph in back when people used to actually read those magazines. And I'm like, I know that dude, and he's kind of spying on this situation. And he comes up later and he says, hey, Martin, he goes, I think this thing's one of the most interesting things at the show. I'm going to write about it. Do you have inventory? And I said, yeah, I do. My wife and I, we ordered 500 of these things. They're designed in the United States, but they're naturally made in China because there's no foundries that make heads in the United States anymore. So we had some stock, and when he wrote about that, it was in March 2009. I'll tell you what, my wife and I, we got paper cuts, and we ruined a few tape guns sending stuff out of her house. But that was a pretty cool PGA show because that's kind of what really launched the Tour Striker brand, Pete. And it was that show that we met the golf agency, and the golf agency is known for, doing a lot of infomercials and marketing a lot of golf products, and we kind of partnered with them, and they did a beautiful job with the infomercial. Like Gary McCord was a star in, because nobody knew who I was. I was just some club pro dude, and if you weren't like related to me or a friend of mine from college, you had no idea who I was. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those things where McCord did a great job, and that the infomercial ran on the Golf Channel for like 18 months, and it crushed. It did really well. So pretty darn fortunate with that thing.
What was that the process of going through the idea to development to production to marketing, financing, all that stuff? Did you and your wife do that on your own and just grind it out and look stuff up and trial and error, or did anyone come in and help you out, or was it a labor of love?
Initially, no. So, the idea of it, right? I told you about that student at my golf course, and mm-hmm. and so I had this idea. I thought, okay, this idea is kind of cool. And then I, with the internet now, you can go to Google patent search. Google's got, all the patents somehow in a basically searchable format. Now, the reality is, unless you kind of understand patents, if you go searching, you may not find what you're searching for. So people call me all the time and say, hey, Martin, I have an idea. Can you help me? And I say, I'll help you under one condition. You don't tell me what you're trying to invent. Unless it's patented, then you can tell me what the idea is, or it's patent pending. But if you've got some idea, I don't want to know what it is, because guess what? I'm working on way more ideas too. And I don't want to have a conflict with you if you share something with me that I'm working on. Because let's face it, golfers, we're of similar, ilk, and we think the same way a lot of ways, and we could be working on similar stuff. So I don't want to know what you're working on, but I will help you. And basically, I always tell people, I go, what's the cost value proposition of what you are trying to invent? Like a golf club is easy, because a golf club, if you go buy a sand wedge at PGA Tour Superstore, you're going to pay $100 to $125, give or take, for a random sand wedge. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less if it's a lesser brand, or some club that's purposely being sold at like $59.99. But a golf club's easy, because a golf club, people go, well, it's $100 or it's $125, and maybe graphite shaft, maybe it's a few dollars more. So that's got a cost value proposition to it that makes good sense, because you can make a shaft overseas at bulk is $1. A grip overseas, $2 if it's an expensive one. A grip is no more than $1. Okay, so, and a club head is between $8 and $12, depending on how intricate it is. So now you've got a $13 or $14 thing that you can sell for $100 to $125, right? So people have to have margin. There's got to be a cost value proposition that makes sense to the consumer, and then you have to be able to make it so that there's plenty of margin in there, so you can market it, so you can have some mistakes, so that you can fulfill it. All those pieces that everybody thinks, oh man, you must crush it on this stuff. I'm like, well, there's a ton of expenses you don't know about, right? There's we have a warehouse, we have employees, we have marketing. That chews up a lot of the margin between what you sell it for and what you make it for or import it for, right? And at some point, the United States I think these 3D printers are going to change the world, actually, and a lot of this stuff will be made, on-site 3D print-wise. It'll just kind of happen.
What was the biggest thing that you took from the first Tour Striker, that whole process that you really started to streamline as you got into some of your other things, your other patenting, the plane station and the power click, the putter grip, all those good things? I mean, have you streamlined it a little more?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've got a good connection overseas, which is nice. Is a great Irish guy who lives in the industrial portion, where they make most of the golf products in the world. So this fellow is in the golf business in Northern Ireland, and he saw an opportunity to somehow go learn the language over there in southern China, and he's over there, and he's got a great business on his own. Now we've become friends, so he helps me with my projects, and he obviously makes money from helping me, which is great for him, and it's a win-win. But I think a lot of inventors, they get stuck right off the get-go, like, how do I get this made, right? So I'd say to somebody out there, if keeping things simple is critical, like, can you go in your garage and make one? And hopefully it's a bit of a drag to make it, but if you're really thoughtful, and maybe over a day or two or 5 or 6 hours, you can go make a basic prototype of what it is that you think might help you play better golf. Okay. Because if you can go make it in 2 minutes, then that's a problem, because what's to stop anybody from going to make what you want to sell in 2 minutes, right? But if there's a bit of a headwind to making it, right, then somebody's more likely just to buy it because they don't have the time, or maybe they don't have the supplies to go make what it is you sell. I've had people make Tour Strikers, like the training club, and I get a kick out of it. They'll send me a photograph of a old club that they've ground on, or they've added metal to, and taken the one of those little grinding tools and made a basic Tour Striker. And I'm thinking, man, you got a lot of idle time, and hopefully you wear protective eyewear, because you might hurt yourself, right? Or it'd be just easier to spend $100 and buy one of the things, and you could have had a nice afternoon doing something else or playing golf.
Right? Why go through the trouble when you can just go to the Superstore and buy one?
You know what I mean? So some people like that. Like even my latest product, the PlaneMate, right? So the PlaneMate is kind of a weightlifter belt worn down lower than where a weightlifter would wear, kind of down where your belt is. And it's got a series of bands, and it connects to the club a couple different ways. And this guy online's like, oh, I can make one of those for a quarter of the price. I'm like, well, if you can, go ahead, buddy. Go find the bands that are the right length. Go find the clips that hold on the club. Go make a belt that has a rail on it. Knock yourself out and have fun with it. If you're one of those DIY guys and you like doing that kind of thing, go do it, right? And if you're like me and you don't have time for that kind of stuff, order one. and when it breaks, I'll repair it, or I'll send you another replacement, or we'll have customer service that'll do you right. So, it's the goal on the line of product development is, is the thing simple enough? Will it help somebody? Does it need a million instructions? If people are people going to feel like a dork going to the range and using it, right? And that's a big thing, Pete, is that I'm fascinated. The better the player, the less they care about what other people think, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a tour range, you'll see a lot of guys using one of my smart balls, that inflatable beach ball in a lanyard, and that silly thing is patented, utility patent in the United States. So, I had a Club Pro guy try to make smart balls, and he called it the connector ball, and I sent him a nice letter. I'm like, do you realize I have a patent on this? And he said to me, how the heck did you get a patent on an inflatable ball with a necklace on it? I go, don't take it up with me, take it up with the U.S. Patent Trademark Office, right? Because I did, and I just applied for it, and I got it. My attorney did a good job writing up the case, and lo and behold, there you go, right? So the guy's like, I couldn't imagine that was patentable, and I'll stop selling my version. And, so if you make something somebody can knock off super easy, you better have a bit of protection, right? If you make something that is tricky to knock off, then is a patent necessary? Not necessarily. If it's really successful, it's going to get knocked off. That's
Right.
And it just is what it is. So I've been dealing with that quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I've been following the PlaneMate, and that seems like it's really caught on really quick, and it doesn't catch on quick if it doesn't work. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it's a cool story. I'm a content provider. I'm one of the coaches on Revolution Golf. So Revolution Golf was, a massive online platform of coaching
Mm-hmm.
that's been out now probably since, it's been 9 years, 10 years. It's been a great run. And, the Golf Channel bought it, and it's kind of gotten a little bit cannibalized a little bit within the Golf Channel, because Golf Channel is so big. But it's such a neat platform anyway. So I have to come up with these tips, and every week I do a tip, sometimes 2 a week. Well, I've done 500 of them now, right? So every week, and a lot of it's on the same theme: drawing your driver, hitting it a little farther, wedge shots, blah blah blah. But I'm always using training aids. I've always loved training aids. I've always loved saying, hey buddy, can you feel this? Hold this way, put this between your arms, this training club, blah blah blah. I like other ones, the orange whip, or you name it, orange wedge. I love Jim Hackenberg stuff too. So one day I decided, I want to tie up a rubber band on the kind of the balance point of the golf club, the club center mass, because I'm going to show this student this feeling at the top that might be different from what they're feeling in their hands. So I started playing around with that idea. So I took a surgical tubing, tied it up to about 8 inches above the head on the shafts, and then I had about 3 feet of it. And I tuck it in my belt, and that served the purpose for a bit of the backswing stuff. So I did a tip on that. And guess who watches Revolution Golf Tips? No other than major winner Darren Clark, which cracks me up, right? So I get this. He finds me on Twitter. He sends me a direct message. He says, hey, Martin, I love this rubber band thing you've got going. And he sends me a video of him doing it. I'm like blown away. And then my buddy, David Woods PGA, has his handle on Instagram. He's got like 100,000 followers. And so David calls me up too a couple days later. Goes, hey man, I saw that was cool. He goes, I tried it, but you notice on the through swing it kind of folds up awkwardly. I'm like, yeah, it's not really a through swing exercise. It's more of a hey backswing feels. He goes, what if you put a rail on the belt and the thing, and the attachment was movable, right? And so I just happened to be sitting in my office, my home little area there where all my stuff was, basically junk and thoughts I was having, and mix mash prototype things. And I was looking at the Jim Hardy swing jacket. Do you remember that green thing that you kind of put on? Well, it had 2 rails on it. It had a left rail, like a left chest rail, right chest rail. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm talking to David Woods, and I go, man, you know what? I have just the rail. And sure enough, I disassembled it. I went to a shoemaker down the street, and I kind of had him, kind of affix it to the belt. And so now all of a sudden I'm like, all right, well, I need a way to clip it to the shaft. Well, there was another product I had. I think it was called the Perfect Release Trainer. It was this great product that it had a clip for the shaft, and then it would attach to your left arm, and it was a cool product, still is. I tell people to get it all the time, but I kind of cannibalized that clip, and then I realized, like, hey, I need this clip to do something different. So I made my own clip. I made a clip that attached down low on a golf club or up high in a golf club, and so it basically has two channels that can attach to the shaft. So anyway, fast forwarding, I've got this belt, I've got this rail, I've got this tubing, and attaches to the shaft at a couple different spots. And so I'm playing around with it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is neat. Anyway, I send it off to Woodsy to mess with. And he's got some of like the world's most famous golfers at the Vintage Club. Like, Matt Kuchar hangs out there. You got Jason Day there, Justin Rose, just to name. Camilo Jagas hangs out there, Mike Weir. A bunch of great players hang out there. The world's best, right? And so Woodsy's buddies with all these guys, and they're giving him some feedback on this thing. And by and large, every one of them's got something that they like about it, whether it's a backswing feel, whether it's a through swing feel, whether it's how it gets them into kind of a structure out of dress, right? So Woodsy's kind of doing the ground, the footwork, the foot soldier, getting in some feedback. And I'm on my end kind of doing design and working with my guy in China, getting it to where it's a functional unit. And so it took a while, like, not gonna lie, went through a few prototypes, a few different band tensions, a couple different clip styles, all kinds of stuff. But finally, in July, we started, pumping these things out. And I mean, to my amazement, to be honest with you, like, I thought it'd be a low risk product, meaning that, we'll start with 5,000, right? Big deal. We'll order 5,000 of these things because, my reach is on my website big enough to where I feel like that's not that big a risk. There's value in it. I think I can sell 5,000 of these things, and if I lose a few bucks, so be it. Well, anyway, if I go back to the PGA show now in January, right? So this is now the PGA show 2019, and Woodsy couldn't make it. So it's now our booth is no longer a 5-footer; it's a 20-footer, and it's got prettier pictures, and we've got a team of people there. But I'm walking people through this thing, okay? And to the person, right? Every coach that came through there, I'm talking, Martin Hall, Andrew Rice, Butch Harmon walked on by. They're all looking at this, like, they all see something in it that they can use as a coach to help somebody, whether it's a backswing awareness for not getting pinned across your chest and being too deep too early, or whether it's a through swing, rotary sensation, whatever it is, right? They're sharing this stuff with me. And I'm telling David Woods, I'm like, oh my God, dude, this is crazy. All I did was do plain mate demos all day. And once you put the bands on, like, there's a strong band, I call it the fitness band. There's a standard band, ones you can actually hit balls with. Then there's what we call the pitch motion band. And that's a story too, because Darren Clark made it the pitch motion / driver band. Right? So once you put this stuff on and start working it and stretching in it, when you take the band off, guess what? Your swing feels like it kind of goes on rail where you sort of wanted it to go, where you put the tension into it. Right. So people have a completely different awareness really quickly. And I find it hard now to give a lesson without using it briefly, or even a good piece of the lesson. Like today, I just had a 3-hour session wrap up, and the guy purposely booked the lesson so that he could get the most out of his plane mate. Now you're saying, well, Martin, if you need a lesson, why do you buy it? Well, it comes with a protocol. Like, we made a series of videos, right, that are, step 1, step 3, right? There's like 10 of them now. And if you follow the steps and you're fairly savvy and you're patient, you can get it. But how many of your buddies, Pete, are patient, right?
Yeah, none.
And if they're in Phoenix and I'm handy, they're going to book a lesson and say, Martin, show me how to work this damn thing. Okay, I'm happy to. So here's what you need, right? Rather than follow the step by step, you may not need step 3 through 5. You may need to just go to step 8, right? So lately, of having these people book a lesson or a 2 or 3 hour session with me, and all they want to do is find out which part of the plane mate they need to fixate on, right? So you get the good players who maybe they get up and they dump it they dump it under too much, right? And they're too under plane, and they're jammed up stuck. So we have a solution, a set of feels to help you with that, right? For the guy who gets the too much axis tilt, hips too forward, too much tilty, gets stuck and doesn't rotate, we have a little feel for that. So you can take it, and that's what Darren Clark was. Like, he was pressing me for a while. He's like, when are you going to finish that damn thing? This is going on for like 2 years. Because I told him, I said, I'm going to do this, man. He goes, like, good, I want the first one. And so this is how great a dude he is. Like, this thing came out, he's like, made me send it to Royal Portrush during the British Open, right? Like, I had to, he goes, you got to get, like, that's when the first one was available, like right during the British Open. You got to get one to me. I don't care what it costs. I'm like, buddy, I'm going to send you one. It's my gift. Trust me. And the guy couldn't have been cooler. Like, he, on social media, he put a couple of videos up because he frankly loves the thing. Now, he's not really using it to get shallow. He's using it for more of the post-impact checkpoints and rotary feels like it provides. And I'd say, and you might know David Moreland. David Moreland's an old buddy of mine from Toronto. He's on the Champs Tour now. He doesn't have a card, but he Monday qualified a few times in a row, and he's like, he wanted a plane mate because he borrowed Darren Clark's for a few minutes. He calls me up because we've been buddies since we were little kids, and he goes to me. The phone rings, and his name is David Moreland, but I always call him Morlando Woolrich. Like, for Orlando Woolrich, he used to play for the Orlando Magic because we were playing the mini tour back at the same time, and that's when Orlando, Woolrich played. So I call him Morlando Woolrich. Anyway, he goes, dude, you know what you've done? And I'm like, pause, like, am I in trouble here? He goes, this thing is unbelievable. I'm like, what do you, dude? I'm glad you like it. He goes, no. He goes, it gives me this feel that is it feels so good, and I can take the band off, and then I can hit some balls, and I can pop it on and off, and it goes, it's exactly what I need right now. Now these guys are like texting me, emailing me, want one of these damn things, right? We don't even have any. It's like we had a few, we sold out like immediately, because there was enough social media buzz and enough good players using it that other people ordering the thing. And then I swear, like, I should keep all these. I should keep them on. I just post them on my story on Instagram, so they're there for the day and they disappear. But I'm telling you, Pete, I have had. I mean, the Smart Ball was awesome. I mean, it's still a great product. It's, people love it. They use it. It's a solid product. This thing, I've never received so many messages, and I'm not telling you this for people to go buy the damn thing. Like, if you buy one, great. If
I'm buying it. I'm in now. I'm all in. I'm going to get one when we're done.
I'm being dead honest with you. I've never seen so many messages from people that said, Martin, I just shot my 2 career rounds in the club championship. Young assistant pros saying I shot 65. I mean, I'm hearing record scores. I'm hearing stuff like, I finally know how to pitch the ball. I didn't get it. Now I have confidence pitching the ball. I didn't understand how the club shallowed. Now I get it. I didn't know how the exit worked. Now I get it. And I'm not saying it's like this fix-all, cure-all thing, but what's been crazy about it is everybody can look at it and go, okay, what's the one thing I need? Maybe they just follow the protocol, and that's what most people do. And they go, okay, step 1, step 2, and they get better just from watching Dave and I do our exchange on the range in Toscana, which is in Indian Wells, and then they follow that protocol because they can't get with their coach. Or what's happening is tons of coaches are buying it, right? And so rather than inundate a student with words, they're saying, here, put this on, keep this tension right here, during the swing for a little bit, from like hip high to hip high. Keep the band fractionally taut as you kind of chip a few. And then the coach will say, oh, do you feel the tension kind of, you lost? Oh, yeah, I felt the tension go, okay, keep the tension in. Okay, oh, that looks better. Then they're relating it maybe to video back and forth a bit. And they're like, oh, I see. Now let's kind of work a little longer. Let's go to the backswing. Feel all that tension now? Yep. Well, that's your arms doing the work it needs to do. Okay, now if you let the band relax, try to relax a bit. Now let the band pull on you a bit. You feel that? Yeah, I feel that. That's the club showing behind you. Oh, I get it. So we're getting a lot of these little epiphanies now from the band and how the belt works that frankly is blowing my mind, like blowing my mind. So it's one of those things where we're on our second. We've had X many batches of these things now we're selling through. And the worst part about it is the lull between new orders, because people are like, hey, man, when's it coming in? Hey, it's sold out in Canada. Oh, I can't get it in the UK. And I feel bad. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I wish I could just wave my magic wand and have adequate stock. But for a small time guy, like, we're a small business, right? It's risky to keep ordering these things by the thousands. But I mean, it's been crazy. Like a couple of the best golfers in the world have recently ordered a plane mate. And the funny thing about it is, that when the best golfers in the world order one, they pay full price. You know why? Because they don't want to be not only that, but they don't want to feel like they owe me like a social media post, right? Or they owe me a favor, right? Because if, like, for example, if Brooks kept going at a Playmate, you think I'm going to send him one, right? Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Brooks, here you go, buddy. I know you don't, I know you can afford one, right? But then
Maybe.
he won't feel obligated, right, to, like, put something on his Instagram feed or whatever. But I'm getting like a couple crazy, like, I can't say because it's not fair. If they pay full price, I don't tell who buys them.
Right.
But if somebody gets a free one, I'll tell you who gets them, right? But it's yeah, no, it's been shocker. And so you say the streamlining thing. I'd say, to you inventors out there, people with ideas, and that's most golfers. We all have our ideas. What's the cost value proposition? Can you make it at some kind of volume for a price that you can at least sell it for 6x? So if it's $10, you got to be able to at least sell it for 60, and it's got to have a value proposition. It's got to, I always joke. I say, Pete, I sell hope, right? I sell hope, and golfers, some of them do the work, some of them just order hope, and they never do the work, right? And I want them to order it and use it, do the work, and they'll get shockingly better, whatever product it is, frankly. But many people just say, man, I'm going to buy that. And by pressing buy now, they think that somehow pixie dust will fall on them and they'll be better. No, you still got to do a bit of work. But a good product will help you streamline the A to B from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah, I agree with the hope thing. And so you got a dual purpose, like you just explained. You've got, it has to work, and it has to give them hope. That we last week before when we were setting this up, I remember we talked about that putter fitting system I put together. And I when I lecture, when I go into a club and I not lecture, but present before we do the fitting day, and I tell, the whole thing goes around, does anyone know what Disney is in the business of? And it's like making dreams come true. Now, I don't make dreams come true, but at a minimum, when I fit somebody and work with them on their putting, when they hit a putt and they look up, at least they still have the excitement that it has a chance to go in. Because I'm usually getting, when I'm new and no one knows who I am, if I, wherever I go, then they're like, well, who is this guy? And okay, he's snake oil salesman. But once they start to, and I usually get the worst putters in the club, but then when they start putting really well, or at least look up and the ball hasn't crossed over to the weak side until it passes the hole, then their excitement, they're like, oh, the game becomes fun again, to your point.
Right.
And they enjoy it.
And that's awesome. That is awesome. And that's, when you can take somebody who hasn't, like, they like golf, but maybe part of the game drives them crazy, like putting, right? Or chip shots, or 30-yard wedge shots, because those are the ones that are so emasculating, right? Like, it's like, man, you should be this macho dude or this strong lady, and you should be able to stare a 6-footer down, but yet you can't. Or you have this 20-yard pitch, and in your heart you're terrified of it, right? Because you don't understand some of the mechanics in order to hit the shot. And when you can help somebody kind of break through that fear, that is one of the most gratifying things, or that is the most gratifying thing in coaching, probably. It was super fun to see Nick Taylor win a tour event. A young man I helped out a few years back. He, got on tour and he won right away. That was awesome. And that was, I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I helped that kid, and he won a tour event, and that was cool. But I enjoy just as much some guy who comes down to Phoenix on vacation. He signs up for a lesson. He looks me in the eye and he goes, man, I'm terrified of a 20-yard pitch shot. And because you face those all the time, but if you don't understand the mechanics, and back to your putting, it's the same thing. Like, you've got a process to help them understand and putt better, right? A good communicator can show somebody, can break away the rubbish of how a club moves in pitch shots or full swing, to where the person goes, oh my God, I've been doing it exactly the wrong way forever. Like, keeping your head down, for example. Nothing's going to make somebody pitch the ball, or once they hit a couple bad ones, and then that person tries to keep their head down more, then their pivot stalls, and then they don't actually extend their body. They don't have room for their arms to be long. They don't have room to brush the grass with a reliable radius, right? Now they got to keep their head down, their elbows separate, their pivot stalls, the club flips, and then it's game over.
Yeah, it's the
They'll never
chunk
be
or the
a,
blade. They have
you
two
know it,
options.
right? It totally. But when you teach them the right way, sometimes I say it's like trying to sell stock in Christopher Columbus's boat. Like think about, 1488. He goes, you know what? I'm gonna build a boat and I'm gonna go that way to get tea from China over that way. And he goes around and he's raising money. He's like, hey, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go the other way. Everybody goes, you're crazy, man. You go that way, you're gonna fall off the end of the earth. We know that. I can see the end from here. Well, you can't go that way, right? So you're completely radically changing how somebody thinks sometimes, and that's hard to give up on, right? That's hard. Like I was saying, somebody really likes their 92. Well, they don't like chunking their pitch shots, but man, they love the belief system they have that they have about chunking their pitch shots. Like I got to keep my head down, right?
Yeah, they get in their comfort
So,
zone that they're just a little bit away from it, but they're deathly afraid of that one shot. It's like you're not as close as you think. You are, but you aren't, right? If you can learn to hit that shot, yes, you'll start breaking 90, but you have to learn how to do it. It's not going to magically happen one day.
And you got to learn how to do it, and you got to have trust in it. And and occasionally even really good pitchers of the golf ball miss-hit a shot, but they don't. You know why they don't care? They may be upset for a blink, but they know that the next one's probably going to be good. It's like a good shooter in basketball. They might miss one, but they go, all right, give me the ball again. I'm going to make the next one, right? So you got to have that mentality like you want the ball. And in golf, you have to have, certain things in place so that you feel like you're reliable. So you want the ball. You want that shot. It's fun. You want pressure because, man, you think that you can pull it off. Even if you don't, it's okay. You still got to have the belief that you want the opportunity to fail or not, right? And so that's the player that I want. Is I want to give them the opportunity to do something cool. If they blow it, fine. We'll get another opportunity to excel, right? But they got to feel like, man, I can do this, and that's what's cool.
Right. What you own your own academy, Tour Striker Academy, and you have this line of products. What was the bigger moonshot for you? Meaning, what was the bigger risk? Was it putting up the money on a product and then investing in it, time, energy, capital, or was it going out on your own, leaving the comfort of, let's say, being an employee of a club and getting a paycheck every month or every week or what have you, and then starting your own where if you don't teach, you're not getting paid? So which one was a moonshot for you, or were they both?
And, I would say that there was a lot of luck in my situation. So, I was a director of golf, general manager at a facility in Oregon, a neat place called Tethrow. I had a great owner, had a great owner's rep, and it was a nice job, and it was a comfortable job, and I worked my tail off, but I enjoyed it. It was, taking a club and opening it and getting it started, and I had fun with that. I had some great staff. The Revolution Golf was probably my biggest break. Okay. Like the Tour Striker was cool, no question. I made money from that, and the product line, we make money. But Revolution Golf was my big break because I always, when I do these little presentations for PGAs, like I've got a couple this fall. Like I'm going to Connecticut, and then I'm going to Kentucky, and I'm doing Arizona too. I always say, are you ready for your break? What is that? Are you ready? Meaning that I was doing video for my members before. I started seeing these pros do YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, that's kind of clever. Look, you can do a video. YouTube will store it on their, whatever those are called. I didn't even know they were called servers back then. And there's a link to that video, or here's this embedded code that could be put into an email. And I thought to myself, well, I can send a member a message on where to park golf carts by the green, because they all park 2 wheels on the grass and 2 on the cart path. Just keep all 4 on the cart path, please. And don't throw cigarette butts on the grass. And here's how you rake the bunker properly. And here's where the rake goes. Oh, and here's how you handle a water hazard rule. Here's how you handle lateral water hazard. So I would do these little video vignettes, so to speak, and drop them in the newsletter at my club. This is in Reno, Nevada back in the day. I invested into a wireless mic. I had a camera, and I would make these videos. And members were like, hey, I love that video. That was great. I didn't know that. Well, I'm like, okay, cool. And then I would say, hey, come to Valentine's Day dinner, blah, blah. So I was making these videos for the club, right? And so they were going on YouTube. I was getting better at it. I was making more. I wasn't stumbling over my words as much. I could look at the camera, and my thoughts were more succinct. And now all of a sudden this product comes out. Okay. The Tour Striker product comes out. and it had a great run on the Golf Channel. So, now, 15, 16 months into this deal, it's not the channel. I mean, every episode isn't necessarily making money. Like when you buy a infomercial spot, it could cost you anywhere from $3,000 to $20,000 for a half-hour episode.
Ooh.
That's your hard cost. So you better sell a lot more than that episode cost you, or you're just losing money. Pretty simple math, right? So Gary McCord and the novelty of the Tour Striker did so well for so long, we kept running it because every time we ran it, we made money. Well, pretty soon it gets saturated and people go, oh, they lose touch. Maybe they have one or whatever. They lose interest. Well, when I was at home and the internet, like all these golf forums started to pop up, and there was some pretty cool exchanges with golfers through internet forums, and then banner ads started to pop up with golf stuff. I'm like, man, I think the next step is getting involved with this internet stuff. Everybody's watching these videos and they're all, bantering back and forth in these forums and blogs and this and that. And so oddly enough, my neighbor comes over to my house for a beer one day. This is in 2011. Okay. He says to me, hey, I was just at this marketing conference and I met this fella who's got this, he's got this golf platform called, I forget what it was even called back then. It wasn't called Revolution Golf. It was called something else. And Don Trahan was the coach. Like
yep.
Don was the primary coach.
Yeah, he
right?
was doing split time at Old South where I'm teaching out of.
You know what I mean? So yep. Don Trahan was, he was doing this. And so this fella, Justin Tupper, used Don Trahan because Justin and DJ were buddies, about the same age. And I'm like, man, I'm seeing the banner ads for this everywhere. I don't even get this. But, man, I this is crazy. So now all of a sudden this guy comes over to my house for a beer and he goes, I met this dude who does this, the Don Trahan golf thing. I'm like, you're kidding me. Well, right around then, Don and Justin had a beef, and it went to something called Revolution Golf, and they got a couple of new instructors. They got Paul Wilson out of Vegas, and they got Jim McLean, and they trying to think of who else they had. They had fitness stretching guy. Why am I spacing on his name from Southern Cal? Anyway, great guy. So he tells me about this. Next thing you know, he's put me in touch with Justin Tupper. Well, Justin Tupper knows about the Tour Striker because he couldn't help but see the infomercial. And he goes to me, he goes, hey, you know what? I think we could help sell a bunch. We could have a win-win here. We could sell a bunch of Tour Strikers, and maybe if our audience likes you, maybe you could do a couple of videos for us. So I said, sure. So he arranges to fly me to Central California, like we're in like San Luis Obispo. And he goes, I need you to do a few tips. I've got a crew here. We're going to do a few tips. Okay, fine. So they hit roll. Okay, go ahead. Well, 30 tips later in 3 hours, I busted out like all kinds of video content for these guys. Okay. Like just one after the other, nonstop, not taking very many cuts, just going. And the guy's like, dude, you did pretty good with this. And I'm like, well, luckily I've had a lot of experience doing this for my club members. Right. And so he's like, all right, well, let's see if the audience likes you. So then all of a sudden they start playing my tips on Revolution Golf, and the audience was great. They're like, man, I love the way you explain things. That seems so simple. You took something kind of tricky and you made it, digestible, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they sold a bucket load more Tour Strikers, and then I was basically entrenched as a faculty staff member on Revolution Golf. That was growing like mad, okay, to where they got up to darn near 2 million viewers, right? So there's Martin Chuck, this Club Pro guy, right, who was ready for an opportunity, didn't know it, but he had practiced, didn't know why he was practicing. Now all of a sudden he gets an opportunity to be on this really crazy cool website doing these 3 to 5 minute tips every week, sometimes twice a week, to a massive audience. So as soon as I was going to be a faculty member on that website, I said to Stacy, my wife, I go, hey babe, this is going to change everything. I'll tell you why, because it's going to take me from being a coach who was like respected by only people who knew me as a coach and my small little pond and the golfers that I got my hands on, to like a worldwide audience of golfers. So when I said this is going to make it to where the day job don't need it, because trust me, not that I don't work my tail off. I work my tail off every day, but it's coaching now. Mm-hmm. Like I love coaching people. I love helping people hit it a little better, have more fun playing golf. So, but I don't have to set up weddings now. I don't have to worry about the soup of the day anymore. You know what I mean? And frankly, if I don't like you as a student, I'll fire you. So if I don't want you as a student, I don't have to have you. You see what I'm saying? A member, guess what?
Can't
Unless
get
that
rid of a
member
member.
really, you can't get rid of them. And some of them we did actually, but most of them, gratefully you like. But there's the odd one that's a complete pain in the rear, and they're there every day. And one of the best jokes in the golf business is you have to learn how to be just as enthusiastic saying hello to one guy, the same guy today as you do tomorrow, as you do 2 weeks from now. You got to figure out a new way to be enthusiastic and greet him when he shows up to the club, right? No matter what you feel like, it doesn't matter, right? You got to be there for that guy. Well, I feel that way about coaching, but to me, they're happy to come see me. I'm not like a dentist. They're coming to see me for hope, right? And I'm going to be on them. I'm going to be a little hard on them because I want them to do well. I'm going to hold them accountable. But back to the point of what was the biggest thing for me was once I got on that platform, that was cool because now I had this audience, a worldwide golf audience watching my content. And, and that's when I said to my wife, hey, you know what? Let's go to a golf school. And those people got to know me online. And I'll tell you, most people that come to the golf school, they say to me, man, I feel like I already know you. And I'm like, thank you.
That's pretty cool.
I feel like I already know you. And that's a great thing. And they go, I enjoy your content. I'm here to work hard for a few days in golf school. And I'm like, all right, roll up your sleeves. Let's go.
I don't, like you said, you were working on things and you were working hard. You didn't know you were fixing a problem that you had at your club, and you were working hard.
Right.
You didn't do it to say, I'm going to do this and it's going to equate to me getting X, meaning I'm going to get this Revolution Golf gig if I do this. I mean, you progress. So I mean, yes, there is a form of good fortune in there, but you have to put yourself in a position to take advantage of the good fortune, right? If someone else is there and they had never practiced YouTube, then they're not going to look very good on camera. And I mean, so you were able to take advantage of that, but based off what you had been working on. So it's a great combination of you were prepared whether you knew it or not, just by what life presented you, the challenges, and you accepted and took them on. And then when that opportunity came, I mean, you were perfectly ready for it.
And that's, I think, young professionals in the business, right? You get into the business, and guys more our age, they see the traditional PGA route, be an apprentice under a quality pro, and that pro hopefully has a good reach of when jobs open up, that sort of thing, and then they build their skills in their club environment, and then possibly they'll be ready for a club that they can go run on their own and make a decent living, right? That's much greater than an assistant pro would make. And things have changed quite a bit in the golf business to where a lot of the information is there for you. Like, you can go search the internet. You can follow all kinds of great teachers. As I'm talking to you on the phone right now, Brian Manzella's name keeps pinging on my phone because he's got a live video right now. So, there's a passionate guy. Brian's been a friend of mine for years. I consider him a mentor because he's helped me with a lot of stuff. That guy is a hard working mother scratcher. You know what I mean? Like, he is. And, he's gotten some beefs with some guys. He's so passionate about
but he's not afraid to put himself out there.
No, he's not. He's not, and I think, there's other super passionate guys, and I get it, and I give those guys credit. Now, do you have, nothing's coming something could drop in your lap. Let's face it, people could get lucky, right? But by and large, you got to be ready for something when it does present itself to you. And, I was lucky enough to kind of maybe look into the opportunity of video and presenting my ideas on video back when most people weren't doing it. Now, a lot of people do it because they realize, like Instagram, a lot of snippets and golf information. Most pros now, unless they're, under a rock, right, they will put information out there, and then people can choose. Hey man, I like the way that guy talks. I like the way he presents ideas. Good. If I'm in that town, or maybe I live in that town, I'm going to go take a lesson from that lady or guy or whatever. Right. And so when I do these presentations, I show people, I say, hey, listen, the young apprentices, I want you to make money. Here's the recipe for making money coaching. You have to take a lesson. Okay. And it can't be transactional. It can't be, I'm going to give you time, you give me money. It has to be relational. It has to be a relationship, right? A time and money exchange, that doesn't leave the person feeling anything. I want it to be a relational thing where they go, man, the guy gave me some insights, but I feel like I made a friend and he legitimately cares about my golf game. That's what a lesson should be like. Okay. And then there's some fundamental pieces in there. There's got to be a way to kind of measure it a little bit, display it a little bit, and then stay in touch and allow for a two-way conversation, even after the lesson's over. So, trying to coach young assistants now, I get a kick out of it because mentally I feel like I'm 16, but I'm 50, right? So when I say like I'm coaching these young men, 25, I don't even feel like I'm 25. But when I look in the mirror, I'm like, who's the old guy? But my point is, I try to say, hey, listen, if you'll just do these steps, okay, you're gonna do nicely. Just follow these steps and don't let them slack, and then you'll start to build a nice lesson database, and you'll be busier than you know what to do with as far as and a lot of people don't take the steps, Pete. That's the problem, right? They won't follow and I don't charge people for this. I want to, PGA sections will pay me to come and do a little thing, and I'll say, here it is. Go work the steps. Some will, they'll do amazing. Most won't, because it's their nature. Who knows why?
Well, I remember seeing some of your early videos. I mean, some you had, I don't know if it was your bedroom, but it was your house. I think it was your office in your house, and I'm just like,
maybe.
Man, I probably need to do this. I just can't wrap my head around getting in front of a camera, and I know Martin's doing it, and I'm sure it's going to work out well. I just can't get myself to do it, and I didn't start doing any until last year. I mean, I'm way behind, right? But to your point, once you do it a little bit,
there's no such thing. Just do it.
Right, just do it. Get it. I mean, everyone's gonna, everyone. You got to start somewhere.
And I had, and frankly, who cares if you mess up? And that's the thing now. Like, the reason the camera doesn't have to stop because I know how to sort of self-correct in a video. If I say my left arm when I mean my right arm, right? I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, my left arm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like you have to freeze and panic. Just be conversational, even though you're talking to a tripod with a camera on it. Pretend it's a buddy and have a talk with it.
Yeah,
right?
They don't care if you made a mistake.
Nobody cares. And I'll tell people that are, filming these things, I'll say the key is good audio. The video doesn't have to be great. The key is good audio. Invest in a reasonable wireless mic, right? I use a good one, and I've had it for years. So I paid like $700 for a professional wireless mic, but it's on me every day, right? The first thing I do when I get to work, Pete, is I put on my wireless mic. I put fresh batteries in, and I put my wireless mic on. You're like, what are you doing with your wireless mic? You making videos? I say, yeah, for my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I'm working with somebody on the grass out there, my tripod's right there. My phone goes in airplane mode, okay? And then I open up the app I use, which I use Coach Now. There's a variety of them. Coach Now is my favorite. And I start recording videos. They might be a brief video, might be a 10-minute video, might be whatever. But the audio is cleanly going into the video. So this is one of the ways it's relational, because when the student gets home, it's like, hey, man, that coach made like 5 really cool videos for me. Okay, this was the issue. This is the solution. I got to work this way. Okay, cool. And now, guess what? If I want, I can send that coach a note. Cool, and I'll get back to you. And I might even send you a reply with a video. So there's the relational part, right? So it's like maybe they loved the experience, maybe they didn't, but by and large, it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I think most coaches are pretty good. I really do. I just think that some of them could have a little bit better process from the meet and greet to the completion, and then the way that they stay in touch. That's where I think they could be a bit better. And that's how I think they could say, okay, I have 50 students. Okay, maybe I have 50 students, right? In my phone right now, I have 2,700 students. Okay, so how many students a year do you need to make a decent living? Think about it. If you're at a country club, maybe you have 350 members. How many of those take lessons? Maybe 40 or 50. Then maybe you do a junior golf camp, right?
Right.
So when you have 2,700 students in your database of actually people that have taken a lesson, you got a lot of students. That's an annuity almost, right? So I want to show people how to kind of build their student base, how to stay in touch with that. I mean, and the list goes on. It doesn't just stop there. Is there technique stuff I can help people with? Of course. Young pros want to learn a few tricks on how to get somebody to shallow the shaft, or, those kind of things. Of course, there's things that can be helpful, right? But I mean, it's more about the relationship than it is about the hey, mister, this is how you fix your slice. Yeah, you got to give them good information, but you also have to kind of, give them, make them feel that you care, they're going to get better, those elements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell a lot of young teachers that I talk to, okay, what's the cost of acquisition of a new student? If you have to advertise on the internet or whatever you're doing, and they, well, I don't know, it's got to be a lot. Well, yeah, it is. But what's the cost? If you already have a list like you do, 2,700, let's say it's a young apprentice, they've been teaching, they're an assistant at a club. Let's say they've got, like you said, 50 or 60. Okay, make
Right.
sure that those 50 or 60 stay with you wherever you go, whether they
Absolutely.
follow you or um, there was an article, 1,000 True Fans. I can't remember who wrote it, but it said if you can get 1,000 people to follow you, no matter where you go or what you do, they have enough trust in you that they'll buy any product that you come up with. That's all you need. You don't need 100,000 or 200,000. You need a
There you
thousand
go.
true fans, and you're golden.
I mean, there you go. That's awesome. I love it because I feel the same way. My golf school, I look at it like I need 300 people a year, right, to have a really successful golf school season. That's all. That's what I'm looking for. 300 customers a year. Now, the funny thing about that is, out of that 300, it gets smaller and smaller every year. You know why? I don't really need 300 because about 60 of them come back and come back every year. So I had a school last year where out of 12 people, 8 of them were returning veterans. It was crazy.
Mm.
I have a guy that comes every March every year to a golf school. Every year, just comes for the 3 days, he just likes hitting balls. He likes being coached. He likes refining certain things. So and he just digs it, right? So it's funny. It's like the more you get, the less you need, because you start building fans, and then it's kind of a cool thing because the returning veterans almost take up the space of the newbies. I guess that's somewhat cannibalizing to a degree, but it's also what lets you charge more if you want to, right? So there's some fun things in coaching. That's kind of why I like it. I'm involved in the PGA again. Like, I'm on a national board just to kind of try to help mentor the younger coaches. And hey, man, this business can be fruitful. You just got to do a few steps well, and you don't have to be, the greatest gift of coaching. You don't have to be some magician and see everything perfectly. You just got to do some steps. The information's out there. You can go follow whatever you want on the internet, and you can pick and choose the way they explain things, and if you love the way George Gankus says stuff, choose a few things. Andrew Rice or Martin Hall or Como or McCormick or Chuck Cook or Mike LeBeau or whoever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so Pete Popovich, it doesn't matter. Just find out what somebody does well. Go watch them. Ask for help. I don't know anybody that says, no, I'm not going to help you.
Yeah, it's
Anybody
one
who
thing
wants to
about
come.
the golf industry. Any teacher or person within the industry, if you're an assistant, you're an instructor, what have you, you can call up just about any teacher, regardless of how big they are, and say, "Hey, is it okay if I come learn from you, watch you give a lesson, or spend a day with you and just shadow you and just learn?" I haven't not ever heard of anyone denying any other apprentice or person or anything ever.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing would be, I'll tell people this: you can come watch a golf school anytime. So we have a golf school at Phoenix that runs from end of October through 1st of May.
Mm-hmm.
We do one a week, right? So I tell people, come sit, enjoy, ask questions. Help us out if you want to. Grab some balls and not coach, but you can be a part of the DL, sit and have lunch with us, kind of thing. When I'm meeting a student for the first time, I don't necessarily want somebody kind of watching, because that person's nervous. Like, you should have saw the dude today. This guy signed up for 3 hours. He was so nervous today, just coming to take his lesson. If he would have had another person watching, he might have exploded. So
yeah, that's the only time
one thing
that I've had other pros say, hey, I can't. They don't say no, but they say, let me check with my student to make sure they're okay with it. And if the student isn't,
right.
then of course they can't say yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you.
But at golf school, there's so much going on, right? Because I've got 4 coaches and 12 people, and there's 5, pros, and the people around. So there's so much going on that you have another guy sitting in a chair and watching myself or Aaron or Mike or Brian or Jim do his thing with the group that they're involved with. Nobody knows the difference, right? So I love it when younger coaches or older coaches come and watch the golf school, because they'll watch some of the presentations we do. And that's a big deal, man, is the presentation, right? Standing up, addressing the crowd, having fun with them, looking them in the eye, telling them what's up, not being overwhelmed. One of my, I don't know, so there's Greg Avon. Do you know Greg Avon? He's a great guy. He's a hockey player from northern U.S., and he owns a golf course down here called Lone Tree. Well, his son, Tommy, is a good player, just graduated from, I want to say he played at, where did he play at? Not Duke. He was at, oh man, I can't remember the school. Anyway, I started helping Tommy a little bit with his game a number of months ago. He won the New Jersey Open. Okay. So he won like 15 grand, got this big fat check. And he's working at this nice club around the city somewhere. And he said, Martin, I had to do my first ladies clinic. I didn't do a very good job, and it's like, because he didn't really know what to do. Now, I've given hundreds of ladies clinics now at 50 years old, and I love it, because I get the ladies giggling. I mean, I have fun with them. I don't care if they're 25 or 95. It's easy just to kind of have a little laugh.
Oh, it is.
Say a couple friendly jokes and just get them lightened up and missing, having fun, being silly with a golf club, right?
It's more enjoyable,
so it'll be cool,
right? Because the men are so serious. I give you a real quick story on that. When I was, this is like 99, 98, 99.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a ladies clinic and the bunker clinic always sold out. I had to do double clinics, 12 ladies in each one, because they could never get out. And the course I was at, they had some pretty high lips. So the women were always like, you got to help us. Okay, no problem. So we're in the bunker one time, and I'm all the way at one end, because I think I had like 14 that day, women in the bunker.
Yeah.
And Viagra had really gotten to popularity then. And and I'm on one end of the bunker, and the one lady says, it won't go up. And before I realized what I even said, I said, well, just write Viagra on it. And I didn't. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to get fired. And I turned around, and it's dead silence. And I turn around real slow, and they're all of a sudden on the ground, and they're all laughing their ass off.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, thank God.
No, and I know. But no, and I get it. Like in a club, and so in my situation, right, so I've got my own business, right, and my golf school, so I can be a little bit more loose. And my assistants, I say stuff that they always grin and crack up and shake their head like, I can't believe you just said that. Now, I try to keep it away from something like in a club environment. You got to be super careful these days, right? But I'm old enough, and I say stuff, and it's not like anybody's going to sue me, but you got to have fun. You got to keep it light. And the sexual references I stay away from, but I will have a lot of fun on a lot of different subjects with people, just to kind of. And I'll tell you another thing. Guess what's always playing? I always have music playing. There's some silly disco on, or rock and roll on, or something, because if I'm teaching and I'm snapping my fingers or Bohemian Rhapsody comes on and we're like, having some fun with that, or I ask the students, I say, hey, what genre you want to listen to, and somebody will say, oh, country, or okay, you got country, and then rock and roll oldies later, and then we'll do some disco at the end of the day, or just for a laugh. Right? Because
it's the newest thing with Pandora and Spotify and speakers. People love that stuff. Have fun.
You know it. And so they're in there and they're enjoying the music, and it takes a little bit of the monotony out of just of hitting golf balls and grinding on something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something we enjoy here, and it's just all about enjoying. It's just having a good time, through this silly game we call golf.
What's the most interesting lesson you've given in, let's say, the last year or so?
The most interesting lesson? Man, that's hard. I've given a lot of lessons. Interesting ones. I think.
Or we can expand it to either the most interesting or most satisfying.
Oh, I kind of alluded to it earlier. When somebody has an epiphany, and you can shake their belief system, right? Like so many guys and men, for example, like the whole head down thing.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they miss a wedge shot, they think, "Oh, I peaked," right? So just the other day, I had this great guy, Tom. Tom came by, and he said, "Martin, I'm playing really good. He was a golf school guy, but I'm struggling with this basic chip shot." And so sure enough, I said, "All right, Tom, let's go take a look." And I recorded the swing, and Tom is, hitting the shot, and as he's coming through impact, both his shoulders are shrugging up and his elbows are separating a little bit, right? And he missed one. He said, "Man, I lifted my head there." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I showed him the video. I'm like, "Buddy, you didn't lift your head. In fact, your head got a little, got a little shorter." I said, "You're trying to manage the radius by like shrugging your shoulders and bending your elbows. You're keeping your head down because that's a belief system you have that is killing this particular shot." Now, fortunately, in his big swing, there's enough dynamics. His body's pushing him around enough that wasn't a factor for him. But in the short shot, he couldn't manage the radius. So once I gave him an argument he couldn't defend, once I showed him and he couldn't defend it because I could show him enough in video. And then, as a golfer who can play decent, I hit a few shots and said, "Watch, my shoulders can stay generally relaxed. They're not hunching up through impact. I'm creating room for my arms, which include the club to brush the grass, and the ball gets collected in that, and hopefully out of the middle of the face, and it go." Then he's like, "Oh." But here's a guy that was at a golf school. He heard the same thing from me in a different format, but he needed it. He needed it again,
Mm-hmm.
right? Once he got it again, he was kind of able to do it. So, I think that he heard it, he did better, and those things, and even a tiny, short game lesson, that to me is fantastic. Like, and if it's somebody with a driver, or other shots, it always comes down to, okay, what in a golf swing is like, let's call it 1 second to 1.3 seconds. Okay. So whatever you wind up, Pete, you got to unwind, right? Fair enough. And so most people are winding things up to a point that they can unwind it, meaning that, they take it back and they don't have the reliable arms or wrist conditions to where the 75% of the swing, that's the wind up, they can't manage unwinding that in the 0.25 seconds of the downswing.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the coaching I do is to kind of streamline some of the wind up bits so that the unwinding part can be a bit more reliable, whether it's wrist conditions or managing the arms a bit more, or just getting them a bit more structured at address. A lot of people love to set the club on the ground and they have soft arms and the radius from their chest to the ground's too close. And then, I'll explain, well, watch Nicklaus, watch Tiger Woods, watch my mentor, George Knudson. They didn't ever rest the club on the ground, right? They created a radius that didn't include the earth. It included, the club was darn near touching the grass, but it wasn't. Now, it's imperceivable to look unless you're looking at Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus with the driver in their hands, or Greg Norman, maybe one of the best drivers of all time. The club wasn't on the ground, right? So and they'll say, "Well, man, I feel tight when I hold the club off the ground." I'm like, "I'm sorry. You're going to feel really good when you play better." Right.
Let me ask you one swing question. It's not so much a swing question. It's what I kind of see in the instructional world, and it's almost a back and forth between two, what I would say would be somewhat not conflicting, but just differing theories. And it's I'm not going to name names, and because you'll know who I'm talking about, and some listeners will. But there seems to be an ongoing battle between, is there a vertical downward motion first, or is there a lateral motion first?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, I get you.
It's like one group posts one thing one day, and the next group posts the opposite the other day, and I'm like, but it's like both camps have great players, right? They teach beginners to touring pros and extremely successful all the way through, and it's like, I look at both, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are both doing great stuff, so who cares? I think it matters more if you use that for the person who needs that motion. That's what's more important.
Yeah, I think when I'm standing here, I'm kind of making air swings right now, and I won't pound my hand on the table and say it's this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I stand there and I'm pretending I have a club in my hands, and like, I'm a big fan of one of Knudsen's things, which was great, was the importance of footwork. Okay, so the importance of footwork to me is when you're holding a club in your hands, there's always pressure left and right. So nobody's static over a golf ball. Like, pressure is to the left, it's to the right, to the left, to the right. And then it's to the lead side for the last time. And then when it's on the lead side for the last time, if you stop me, you could say, well, man, Martin's got 70% of his weight on his left foot at address because he's a right-handed golfer. I'm like, yeah, maybe I do, maybe 80%. But the fact is that pressure is going back and forth pretty quick as I kind of shuffle my feet and get ready to be an athlete and swing a club. So maybe my pressure's on my lead foot at address for the moment so that I can, let myself wind up and that pressure shifts into my right foot. I'm not physically trying to move myself to the right, and I'm not physically trying to move myself to the left. But within my feet, pressure shifts around quite a bit. And so as my weight's left for the moment, and then it's, I rotate and pressure goes naturally to my right side and my club gets up and goes behind me somewhere. I'd say that the sensation from the top is one that there's, this lateral, a fractional fall. So that would be, there'd be some lateral, which is just a downward sensation into the lead foot, rotational, and then vertical.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, if I was going to tell you what I would describe it as, I would say it would be down, okay, which is it's kind of a lateral downward motion, and then it's a rotational motion, and then it's an upward motion. But there's three things that happen in a blink of time, right? And so it's so hard to teach blink of time to anybody. Now, when you're a kid, you just kind of do stuff. You go, man, I'm a little guy. I want to play with that 14-year-old right now. I'm 10. He hits at 240. I want to hit it. I'm going to rear back and smash it. So these kids kind of figure out the sequence to smash it. And then if they have a decent coach, they get their hands on okay. And all of a sudden, some things kind of are working in a reasonable confine, and now they become pretty good golfers. And it goes from conscious to unconscious really quickly, so they're not really thinking of too many things, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you thought of, lateral, rotational, vertical, right? How do you think lateral? I can't even say those three words within the 0.25 seconds of a downswing, right? You can't. So you could do it consciously. You could do it really mindfully, which you have to, and then it's got to go from conscious and slow to unconscious and fast. And so everything we learn goes from conscious and slow at some stage to unconscious and fast, mm-hmm. right? Unconscious competence, right?
Yes, so. The fourth stage of it, unconsciously incompetent, where you don't even know how bad you are, right?
Right.
And then you go to you then consciously incompetent, where someone actually shows you, hey, you're really bad at this, to consciously competent. So you know what you're doing, and you're working on something. That you're right. That the fourth level is you want to get to unconsciously competent. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, right. And that's a tough place to get to. And I always say to people, people always write down they want to be better bunker players when they come to my golf school. I'm like, okay, put your hand up if you've spent 1,000 hours in a bunker. And it's like crickets, nobody, nothing. Mm-hmm. How many? Put your hand up if you spent 50 hours hitting bunker shots. And then maybe one guy who's like a 6 handicap who's played golf all his life can honestly say he spent 50 hours of his practice life in a bunker, right? If you go ask a tour player how many hours of their practice life they've spent in a bunker, it's 1,000 hours, at least 1,000 hours, not just 20 minutes here and there, right? Gary Player wouldn't leave the bunker till he holed 5 shots, so there was a lot of hours acquired in there before he got to the ability where he could hole 5 shots. And I've seen him hole a few bunker shots in my life, and I haven't seen him that often, right? So it's fascinating. And I'm not even talking about TV. I'm talking in person.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people want things. They're not prepared to work for things, right? As a coach, we got to try to blend in. We got to give them hope. We got to give them a plan, and then we got to hold them a bit accountable for getting some work done. So.
With the level of success you've had, and you've had it on multiple fronts, you're a successful club pro, you got a successful business, an academy, you've got a great family. What is it that keeps you going or motivated or gets you to jump out of bed in the morning?
I still love doing what people ask me all the time, do you like doing what you do? I'm like, hell yeah, I love it. I've got to get off the call soon because I got this wickedly talented dude, who's taking a lesson. He's a college golfer whose club hit speed's like 130.
Whew.
And it's in this kid, the talent is there, the speed's there. Like now he gets to spend time with an old guy who has got some insights to help him understand some stuff. And that's exciting. Like I'd like nothing more to see this crazy talent, 185 ball speed guy, right? understands some of the things about, flighting his wedges a little differently, maybe choosing shots, seeing shots a little differently, right? And because they don't have the experience enough to see the opportunities that it present. So as a coach, that's my job. Okay, some technical stuff, fine. Let's work on a bit of technique. But now when you play, okay, see that front pin? That you got to hit a hard wedge to a front pin because we need the ball to stop in the front third. See that back pin? Well, now you don't want to hit a hard shot in there because if you kind of hit it to, you want to kind of feel like your flight went in there into the front, the front third, let it have a big skip and it'll stop back there. So there's this strategy stuff that a guy like this doesn't know, right?
Right.
And so I just try to kind of give him some awareness to where, hey, if you're going to practice for 3 hours, make 2 of those hours short game. One of those hours, you can hit balls, so that kind of stuff. But it's, man, we could go on, but and let's do another one of these, but I do have to get going pretty soon and go help this kid hit
How much
some
time
balls.
do you have left? Kind of give me a...
honestly, I gotta kind of wrap it up, Pete. So give me your last question if you don't mind, pal.
Let's see. All right. Who is your 2020 SNF Midwinter E-Flight champion prediction?
That's so funny. So for the listeners, Pete and I are both Serbians. So Canadian Serb here. What town are you from originally?
Detroit.
I can't remember.
Grew up in Detroit.
Detroit. Okay, so.
And that comes from Marco down in Florida.
That's
my cousin
Marco Glumac. That's right. That's right. Oh, Marco and cousin Nikki, those two knuckleheads. That's funny. Nikki Lubitsch.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go on a limb here. I'm gonna say Bosco Mamic. Bosco's gonna bring it home. Okay, they're gonna pencil whip that scorecard so good. Bosco's gonna bring home the E-Flight championship this year at the midwinter.
All right, we'll
now
mark it down.
The summer tournament is in Windsor next year, and I'm going. I am going because I just want to see everybody and have some fun and some laughs. And besides, I have cousins there, so I'm gonna go see Petey Chuk and everybody there and see my cousins have some fun.
That's
and
awesome.
So for the listeners out there, my name's, I go by Martin Chuk, but the Serbian name is Chuk. And because it was spelled differently, and back in the days when my grandfather came to Canada, they made it Chuck, and he just went with it for the Canadian version of it. But that's good fun.
All right, man. Drinks are on me next time we're together, whether it's in Phoenix in February or Windsor next August. Martin, thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
To it. My pleasure. Take care.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's Paradigm, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say.